when the trauma happened and threw everything off its axis, and you know, the Neanderthal man came about, which was a different level of consciousness, that's when the Anunnaki came and did the genetic manipulation. So when they say, oh, the apes were here and they got, you know, genetic manipulation, they got upgraded, actually, we were already 12-strand DNA, the frequency barrier came in, we became something else, and then the Anunnaki came in and did upgrade us, but not to the level of what we used to be. We've been a 3-strand DNA, third-dimensional planetary body ever since. And that's the nature of, you know, kicking the goddess out of the way, and why the Christ energy had to come. And so when we understand the Christ Sophia energy as a blueprint within ourselves, that's when we start to activate the DNA again. We get kind of panicked about the genetics of it all, or like, you know, what we inherit, like heart disease or cancer, this or that, but we have to remember it's not disease that we inherit. We inherit the behavior patterns or the beliefs that lead to those things, because only those things can cause unwellness. And this planetary body is no different than us. We are like the immune system of the planet. Our heart nature and us all coming together is boosting the immune system of the planet. And this is exactly what is needed right now, because as the frequency barrier lifts, it is because we are all awakening from within. It's not just about it coming in from above. And so they think the chemtrails are some kind going to block it or get in our way or poison us, but they don't understand that the divinity is coming from the ground as well. It's coming up through the feet chakras, because the goddess has gone into the underworld. It's her womb, it's her creative cauldron, and it's been taken over, and that's why it's like hell. That's why people consider the underworld hell. But when you understand the myths of the goddess like Persephone and Kali and Inanna and all the different stories, they're all about going into the underworld. They're all about that journey. And same with, you know, the death and resurrection of Christ. It's not about dying for our sins as much as it's about getting in touch with those depths, going into that place, because that's what we are. We are connected to that. That's our creativity. Death is a whole different dimension in a sense. It's not necessary. It's been something to control. It's just like time. And this is why the veils between life and death are lifting, and this is what the path is all about. It's been called something in ancient times. They actually used to induce death with snake bites. They actually used to purposely go through the death cycle to master death, to allow love and the higher consciousness to be stronger in order to weave those 2 worlds, 3 worlds actually, back together again. And so, you know, I kind of went through a similar journey in a sense, and anybody who's experienced the dark night of the soul, God, that sounds actually really mild compared to someone. It's like, yeah, it was a really dark night, like thousands of years. But that's the whole point. We go into that. They've taught us to fear power. They've taught us to fear that darkness. And as long as we avoid it, somebody else is going to run the show. And that's why we look to leaders and we look to anybody but ourselves. And so going into that journey, as difficult as it is, allows us to say, I'm going to stand in that place. I don't want anybody else to stand in that place. So when we stand in that power, when we allow ourselves to have those ego deaths, to allow loss and adversity to teach us, to show us, then we can start to get comfortable with the darkness. We're not haunted by it. We're informed by it. And that's what the crone is all about, and wisdom is all about, being able to be in that darkness. And so that's what's being restored, is our ability to face who we truly are and get in there. And so all these underground bases, all utilizing the goddess energy, all harvesting her power, the real energy, the black sun, all their rituals, using those archetypal names and using her symbols to take her power. And that's what the demiurge is. The whole point is they steal the light of the mother and say there's no gods before me. And that's that guy who says there's no gods before me. He's utilizing the mother's light. And that whole story, all those type of myths I'll be talking about in the next few days, to just really understand it from that level, because the myths are the story of the soul. It's what we all have in common. It's what we can all relate to. The information gets a little crazy, but when we can identify with the fact that creation is a love story, you know, there just happens to be a lower male aspect, a lower feminine aspect that gets all caught up in it. And you know, the thing is, with some of these dramas that happen, the birthing of demons happened. As Lilith fled from Eden, she birthed demons. Tiamat birthed demons. It's all based on, you know, attack, suppression, and we birth demons when we're upset and angry, and we're you know, and we birth magical children. I'll get into that some, maybe never. Okay. So this is just the archons. Yeah, I mean, the archons are anything of like a lower rulership. We could be called the lower G, the lower God, the lower God force. All the agents that serve that are archonic. Archonic meaning basically adversary, you know. So the 7 heavens and the 7 hells that we have archangels and archons, archdemons. So the archangels are here to assist us, to help us get into the higher worlds, but the archdemons, are there to just pull us further into matter, confusion, bewilderment, and all this type of stuff. So, I'll be discussing the Sophia myth and how some of that came about and the restoration of it all. So the MILABs, military mind control and alien abduction, this is kind of off the charts. Everybody's kind of blaming alien races, but really because the military has reverse engineered most alien technologies and have, in a sense, collaborated, they're doing a lot just all on their own. My partner was dealing with that. He thought he was communicating with what he called the patrons. He was getting all the information he needed about the Mars recruitment from this group he called the patrons. So when I met him at a festival, and just real quick, I just met him like a normal meeting, and I kind of talked about it earlier. I was living in DC at the time. This was after I left California because nothing I could create would I was being attacked left and right. There was nothing I could do. It was crazy. Like on a sunny day, this cyclone of wind came down the road and broke one of my windows, and I was just like, I'd had enough. I couldn't even get off the couch to clean it up. And like, Laura, didn't that window break like 4 days ago? I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. I was bedridden. I couldn't get out of bed. I was just like swirling and all this stuff, and it's just like, but I wanted people to realize that I was working, like I was busy. I might be laying here, but I'm really actually over here, up here, down here, working the energy constantly, shuffling my cards for 20 years. I have calluses on my fingers. I've gone through about 30 decks, just working the energy. But the deal is I noticed something wasn't right about this Mars recruitment. I'm like, this is not coming from extraterrestrial race. I'm like, what is this group that he's meeting with? Because I was living in DC at the time, and when we were seeing each other, he would go off to these meetings. He would say, I can't really tell you much about it, except we're heading to Mars, and I'll explain later. So, I thought he was just caught up in some NASA thing, and like maybe, yeah, we'll go to Mars. Maybe just for a trip or something. I didn't put two together. But how you just want to make everything wonderful. It's just like positive thoughts. So, I was in that naivety of like not really knowing how to look at the darker layers because it all appeared normal at first. This person seemed normal, very intelligent, normal person who was articulate and seemed sane. But during the period of time where he was going to these meetings, I was getting emails, and I saved these emails. So, because I'm sure people are like, what is she talking about? So I have a lot of, I've tracked all this so that I can, prove it if I had to. So I was getting these emails though, and it was saying, because of cataclysms and this and that, and the looking glass technologies said this and that, we need to get off the planet. And 2012 is the target date. There's going to be 2 arcs. One is named Sophia, one is named Merlin, and we're going to be going, off planet. And so when I was with him, every once in a while, especially if there was an argument or the energy was lowered, the low energy seemed to make him more susceptible or more targetable, or like that's where they would like somehow, it seemed like they were messing with something to get the energy low enough to allow him to be activated. So we find like if we're in a negative space or our energy is a little bit lower, we're more prone to attack. Well, a lot of the trauma-based mind control agendas base a lot of the triggers on there's different scenarios that they can just kind of jump in on to switch the alter in personality. And so what I was noticing is this person, didn't have just one personality, and he was being activated into different ones that all were in disagreement to each other. So I was thinking, all right, I don't think that this Mars mission would be with somebody that had these issues unless they were doing this to him. So, it just took a lot to put all the pieces together because, it was really presented just like the media and the news presents information to us in a very specific way to shield the rest of the information. I was only getting one piece of it, but the red flags, we're very intuitive beings. Red flag, red flag. Well, I might as well have sold red flags because I had so many.
For more information on the next Star Knowledge Conference, call Alan at 818-661-7437 or go to starknowledgeconference.com.